So our last customer presentation for this session is with Linnae Campbell. She is a CMD and RT, and she's the Director of Medical Dosimetry at Southwest Florida Proton. And she has just began her term as president of the AAMD, the American Association of Medical Dosimetrists. Welcome, Linnae. You're welcome.
Okay, can you hear me?
Louder.
This is really about creating one environment in a community proton center. This is just a very practical talk. For those of you who may know me, I'm a little bit silly, so whenever I was trying to explain to somebody that we were starting a new community proton center and that we were going to have RayWorld, they said, "Did you make up that word?" No, I didn't. This is actually just the component of having RayCare and RayStation together. All right, to give you a little bit of background about where I work, this is Southwest Florida Proton, and we are located in Fort Myers, Florida. We are proud to have the IBA P1 Proteus 1 system. The gantry goes from like 325 to 188. We have RayWorld, which is that RayStation and RayCare component together. That means that we really just have a one-stop shop. We do not really work with any other software components. We don't have to export to MIM or Velocity or any of those other systems. We really just keep everything in-house in that RayWorld system. We did beam on December 30th, 2025. We made it in 2025 by the skin of our teeth. Okay, so here's a quick timeline. So the access to the RayCare PVT started October 11th. This is whenever we really started to get into the system and be able to actually start playing with the modules and starting to figure out what were those processes. I really love process improvement, but this was really truly a blank canvas for me, and I was able to actually get to fill it with a lot of wonderful things for our center. Whenever we switched from PVT to PC, we did an actual modular rollout. This is a little bit different, but because we were doing so well and we had such an experienced team that did have a lot of previous RayStation experience, I think that helped give us a leg up. So we actually started with our evaluation and diagnosis module on November 5th. That's whenever Dr. McDonald started seeing her patients in the clinic, and that was such a great day for us. The rest of the modules went live in RayCare on November 24th. I probably should have put an asterisk here because we've actually been adding modules continuously. I think I probably added a new one last week. So we keep going live and we keep improving on our processes. So for those of you who may not be familiar, to try to translate this from other systems, so instead of like having IQ scripts in Mosaic or having basically like a care path, this is basically where you're going to be in the system. You're gonna have modules. Within those modules, you're gonna have these different workflows that happen. So there's a lot of different types here. Pay attention for your CE credits. So registration of the patient happens in here. This is whenever your patient care coordinator is going to actually get started putting in that patient's information whenever they call to your center. You're gonna input the insurance information. Evaluation and diagnostics, that's really where the physician component comes into play, having the consultation of the patient. Then there's also the simulation module. This is where you're gonna have your documentation. How did you set up your patient? What are you documenting for billing purposes? Patient modeling, self-explanatory, that's where we're gonna be doing our MD targets or our normal volumes, getting everything ready, doing our fusions. Then the treatment planning, my favorite part as a dosimetrist, and then the pre-treatment. This is where we're really going to get everything ready from the time that the plan is signed to the time that the actual patient comes in for their treatment. It's all of those really important checks and balances so we don't have a Swiss cheese moment and have any sort of incident with the patient's delivery. The treatment delivery is where the radiation therapy is actually going to happen and the fractions are going to be delivered. Finally, there's a follow-up whenever the patient finishes their treatment course, and then other, we'll talk about here in a second. Okay, so registration and input of the patient's physician. This is a really important component because of the fact that assigning the responsible physician in the system helps you a lot along the way. So you really have to set yourself up for success. This is the ground level. Whenever you assign Dr. McDonald as your responsible physician, then that automatically gives her those initials underneath that simulation order of DM. That says that that's going to auto-assign to her, and so whenever a Patient decides they're going to have their simulation happen, then she's able to go in there and know automatically she needs to place the orders for that patient. So this works across any of the different modules. So you can go through and just say, hey, I need something signed out for a document, or if you're going to put in orders, this is the way to do it. Modules are essentially a series of tasks. There's a lot of different types that you can actually configure into the system. It can be a series of regular tasks where it's just something to remind you to do something. It can be a result where you actually say yes or no, or approve or unapprove something, or reject it. Or it can also be a form. The form is essentially like a document and essentially like an order. This can be based in RayCare or RayStation. So you'll notice in the picture on the left where there's a result task for approving or rejecting something, but there's also below that the whiteboard. That's really great to be able to keep track of different teams, components of tasks that they need to do. You can also display it in other products. That's probably my favorite part as a dosimetry user, is being able to display tasks that I need to do within my treatment planning system. You can also utilize this in the RayTreat system as well. I'll go back and I'll just highlight one more time that auto assignment. If you say that to the primary or to a certain part of the care team, or all of the care team in this case, then it will tell everyone that that is their job to complete that component. On the right, you can see a little bit of the configuration that we've done here. This is a preview of what it looks like in admin mode to actually have a consultation come in for their treatment. For the consultation process, and so doing the actual consultation appointment, going through any processes that the medical assistants do, the nurses do, the physicians are doing, and actually getting ready to place a prescription for the patient to come in for their simulation. Appointments. Okay, so this one was a little bit tricky to figure out, but we got it. So there's series and individual types of appointments. You can also tag different devices. The reason I say it's tricky is because if you don't know what components it's looking for in the configuration, then you may have trouble as a user knowing what to do. So the best thing that I can tell you to do is that if you don't have everything in there and you're new to RayCare, is to always hover over the button that you want to do, like save and close, and it'll usually give you a hint. So I helped one of the MAs recently because they were like, I can't add this appointment. And I was like, oh, you just need to add a nurse and you're good to go. So this is our Pluto prostate. You'll notice he's reindeer Pluto because we were working very hard, very close to the holidays. And so he's our Pluto prostate, and we were able to tag him to go in for a CT simulation appointment. And we use the device of our CT sim. And you can configure your appointment colors if your clinical staff is used to seeing certain colors for certain types of appointments. Task module and integration in RayStation. My favorite part. Okay, so tasks can launch in different workspaces. So this is just kind of a zoomed out picture here, showing what it actually looks like whenever you say to go into the patient modeling and start that plan design process. And I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so the checklists really ensure accuracy. So I know that there's a lot of scripting things that you can do, but if you want to use maybe your script as a double check for your plan check, this is very good for people that are maybe being introduced to proton planning for the first time as well. So this really helps to kind of keep things organized and help ramp up new employees to a new center and make sure that everybody's on the same page and looking at everything the same. So anyway, so there's a list there of everything that we have in ours for the plan design process. Documents and forms. So this is a creation of orders in the form tasks. So the value not set component there where it says like name and date of birth, all of those things are basically Ray domain objects. Those are going to be pulled from the OIS system. You do not have to manually type them in every single time, which is fantastic. I really enjoyed actually configuring these documents because I think we were able to really customize everything for each component of the process. Because we weren't really boxed in, we could really go through and do different things with each component because we had radio buttons, yes and no questions, or drop downs. And the good thing is that if you want really good compliance, you can also make parts of the document required, so then people can't get around actually filling out documents, i.e. physician planning directives. So forms for outside imaging. If you work in a proton center, you know you're constantly pulling in records from other places, you're trying to get prior radiation. So this is something that I utilize and our advanced practice providers also utilize in conjunction with the attending physicians. And this is just a great way for me to know, hey, this is the communication, where is the imaging coming from, when do you need the imaging, and when did the imaging happen, and is there even more institutions that you maybe need imaging from? So activities. This is another subset of types of things that you can actually create in the system. So maybe perhaps you don't need like a whole workflow of actually doing something. Maybe you just need a subset of an activity or a type of encounter, so to speak. So this is the activity that we created for our OTVs. I got really good feedback on this one. Everybody's crazy about this one, which is great. So basically it just has some tasks for the MAs and it has tasks for the physician to fill out for the on-treatment visit documentation. I most recently adjusted this because we had a really interesting case where the tumor was actually protruding from the neck and she had such a rapid response. One of the APPs actually said, hey, can I add images in here? So it was really quick. I was able to go in and say, add an image in, and then we were able to put that into the chart to have everything documented that we did for this patient. Okay, so here's the whiteboards for planning. So I really zoomed in on this and only gave you one slice, one actual patient example here, but this is basically where I like to live. I live in the whiteboard of planning as a dosimetrist, and so this actually just shows that I'm in the plan design, and it shows that it started. Over to the right, you'll see that the progress bar is empty as you start to complete the tasks within, or the checklist within that actual progress of the treatment planning module. In this case, it will actually start to fill up green. Messaging. So I don't know about you guys, but searching in Outlook email is so hard for me. I feel like I scroll for days sometimes. I feel like I type in exactly who sent it to me and I still can't find the email. So this is a really, really nice feature in RayCare where you can actually message about a certain patient. So you can just immediately tell them, hey, this is what's going on with the patient. We're going to start an adaptive plan next Tuesday. And so you can actually decide who to send this to. So in your configuration, you can decide, do you have a whole clinical team? Do you just send it to the therapy team? You can decide who you want to send the messages to and send that to the appropriate people, and it will actually show up in your homepage for your RayCare homepage. All right, iterative process. So like I said, process improvement, very key here whenever you're doing something new. Maybe even more so whenever you're creating a blank space with a new center. The context levels of importance, that's one of my lessons learned. So whenever we were doing our configuration, one of the things that we thought was that we could just add numerous types of modules. I'll call your attention to the consultation module, which is the third one down there. You can see the plus sign to the right. That means you can add additional modules, but you can only have certain limitations of certain types. So you have to make sure whenever you're doing your configuration for the first time that you have the correct case or care plan level type, and you also have to make sure that whatever type you choose is actually going to link to your billing codes, so then the coders don't come back and say, hey, we don't have your charges and we don't have your diagnosis codes for those charges. So that's one of our lessons learned. And then another thing that we did was we actually went through and we went back after our first iteration and we did physician-specific modules. So you'll see that that says Dr. McDonald's consultation. So that was an actual bifurcation of the workflow. It was very simple to do. It just made it so it was really customized because different physicians may want to approach things differently based on the type of patient cohort that they have. And so this really just made it a more customizable module for each of our physicians on how they like to approach their consultations. The treatment delivery, we do this based on the type of imaging. That's because we have different forms and different timeouts that happen for each of those different types of imaging because we have KV imaging and we have the CBCT imaging at our center. This is our consultation form, so this is just kind of showing that bifurcation of the workflow from going from the consultation of having it mostly with the Ray domain objects and then also having an option to just have a free text. So treatment delivery, this is just showing the repetitive tasks that happen per fraction, and this has actually also been updated since the last time that I came up with these slides. So like I said, a lot of process improvement with this, which has been really awesome to do. But the thing that I want to point out with this slide in particular is that you'll see the dollar signs next to the pending where it says daily timeout with the KV approval. That's where those charges actually drop. So you can go in there and you can configure it. With the charges, sometimes I will also make those result tasks where they have to say yes or no that they did a certain type of task or a certain type of device to make it so they can auto drop those charges without having to manually go into the charge panel to try to make their lives easier. This is the offline imagery view. I'm going to go ahead and hit play here, but I will show basically where you launch this from at the very end. This is what the physicians see whenever they go in to actually go through, and I will kind of slide back and forth here. So we've got the overlay on, and you can go back and forth. This is a phantom, so this is a lot easier to fuse than probably most patients would be. So this is just showing that part of it. The physician can go and say that this is approved. The last thing that they can do is they can give a comment. This is a great opportunity for the physicians to give the therapist feedback. So they can actually put in this information and hit save and close. This will directly let the therapist know at the next fraction, hey, maybe focus more on the right side of the neck next time, or whatever that case may be. So they can give that feedback. And then here is where it's showing basically that offline image approval and the timestamp of that and when that actually occurred whenever the physician reviewed the images. If mock Pluto had had more images here, then you would see the radiographs and the CBCTs in here as well, in order to be able to see all the different components. And then you can see below that where it says that there is the feedback for the next fraction. All right, reports. Okay, so this is really neat too. Okay, so patients really want to have their schedule. I know different clinics will handle things differently as far as how much of the schedule that they want to do, but this is something that was built thanks to Katya at RaySearch. She was able to help us get this configured. So what this is going to walk through is a video of showing actually creating the patient schedule report. Whenever I first click on this, it's going to show a link, and I just wanted to also highlight that you can also use that if you use any sort of website. You can actually link a URL within the RayCare system, which is also a cool thing to do. So this is what this is going to do. All right, so we're going to say create the patient schedule report, and we're going to say that we want to open the report builder for the report creation, and then I'm going to pause the video while I do my quick sign in, and then we're into the system. And so this is going to give us a list of the patient appointments once we put in the actual resource name of the P1 device and our patient ID. This patient just had a consultation appointment, but it would actually give you all the appointments for the entire date range that you would select within the system, and it's a nice printout, so then you can give that to the patient, and it just helps with patient satisfaction of knowing when they're meeting, where are they meeting, what's the location, and when are those appointments actually happening. All right, and then scripting. Okay, so everybody's wild about scripting, right? So we can actually script within the RayCare environment as well. So some of those tasks that happen during the radiation oncology process may only happen once a week. So this is an example of us utilizing a weekly script to be able to drop the radiation therapist chart check and the physics weekly chart check. So we're gonna go through, and we are going to say that we want to run the weekly task script, and this will automatically run every time the patient has a fraction delivered, and then that will go green, and it will say completed, that it has run it, and it'll give you the little green arrow. If it is not on the 5th fraction, then it'll give you the red arrow that's farther down, and then you live in that bottom left-hand corner where it has all the patient tasks, and you can go through and see that it's giving you a weekly physics check and a weekly RTT chart check. Of course, none of this could be done with one person. It takes an entire team. I have Dr. Arts, Mark Arts, he's my lead physicist. He was team BEAM and I was team OIS, and I couldn't have done this without the entire team coming together to make this happen. So thank you so much, and thank you to RaySearch for having us out today. This has been such a great experience to see so many Proton users and so many dosimetrists here and getting to be together. Thank you.